The phone rang 3 times and died, leaving me with a tidy sentence. I am not welcome at my own child's wedding. I set the phone down, set the wine down, and set my hand on the mouse. In that instant, I understood if my voice is barred from the aisle, then truth will take the mic. Don't come to me for quiet. I used to be the keeper of peace, the one who swallowed comments at dinner, the one who smiled when called old-fashioned. Not tonight. Tonight, my kitchen table is an edit bay. My hallway clock is a countdown. 5 hours from now, the sun will climb over a postcard beach. 6 hours from now, a honeymoon flight will lift off. 7 hours from now, more eyes than anyone planned will see what someone prayed would stay unseen. I have audio. I have picture. I have silence that says more than flowery vows. I have 2 people who believed daylight could make them invisible. I have cuts that sit quiet on a thumb drive and a scheduled post that will not ask permission. I don't need to shout. I just need to click. Publish. Call me petty. Call me cruel. Call me the only sober person in a room drunk on centerpieces and speeches. I won't argue. I'll ask a question every parent understands if the person you love most is being led into a life built on sand. Do you raise a glass or pull them from the tide? When the music starts and everyone stands, I'll stand exactly where I'm allowed and point the lens at the place no one wants to look. When a white dress glides by like a promise, your screen will slide open like a warning. When that moment comes, don't ask why I did this. Ask why no one else did. The magnet on my fridge clicked as I pulled down the wedding invitation and split it cleanly in half. Paper doesn't scream, but the sound in my chest did. My name is Yoni March, a 62-year-old retired high school principal and the mother of the groom. My son is Rowan March, a good man with a soft spot for promises. His fiancée, Sidonie Vale, loves perfect pictures and tighter narratives. Tonight, I stood between both the messy and the curated. I kept the halves of the card side by side like a before and after nobody requested. I poured a steady inch of wine and set the glass beside my laptop. The cursor blinked, waiting for someone to tell the truth. Older parents will understand this part. Eventually, the house gets quiet enough to hear your own spine straighten. If my voice wasn't welcome under their arch, then the truth would walk itself down that aisle. I started teaching before most of my students' parents had met, and I retired once the grandkids of my first class graduated. I raised Rowan March alone for 27 years, the way single parents do everything by improvising before dawn and praying after midnight. The role of peacemaker fit me like an old cardigan, comfortable, thinning hard to throw away. Then came Sidonie Vale, the kind of polished young woman who can turn a compliment into a paper cut. Old-fashioned, traditional, set in her ways, words that sound polite until they bruise. I smiled at dinners brought flowers to holidays and folded myself small to fit their story. There's a special ache older adults know when love asks you to be invisible so everyone else looks good. The night the invitation tore my invisibility refused. I saw the picture frame on the wall Rowan at 8 gap-toothed sticky from birthday cake and decided I owed that boy a braver mother. I phoned my sister and she answered on the first ring like she'd been pacing. Tamsin Pike is 2 years younger, 3 decibels louder, and my lifelong co-conspirator since we robbed the pantry for pie at 10. Say it, she demanded, and I did. The uninvite, the polite digs, the feeling of being edited out of my own family photo. Tamsin didn't gasp, she growled. What's the plan? That's her favorite word, plan, as if grief can be graphed and solved by Tuesday. Older sisters parent, younger sisters provoke. I needed provoking. No dramatics, I told her. No doorstep scenes. We stay calm, careful, legal. She exhaled a laugh without joy. Good, because I'm already tying my shoes. The climax was quiet. I realized I wasn't alone. If you've ever stood up from a low couch and felt your back complain, you know the feeling. Pain, yes, but also proof you're still able to stand. I set boundaries like a teacher writing on the board. thick marker straight lines. We would not trespass. We would not hack. We would not bait. We would observe, record what was public, and keep a ledger of timestamps a judge could love, fear of losing Rowan. March had been gnawing at me for months. I handed that fear a job. It would keep me honest, not hungry. Older parents remember when answering machines clicked and cameras had to be wound by hand. Evidence used to be heavy. Now it's small enough to hide on a keychain. I opened a fresh spreadsheet and titled it Schedule. There's a dignity in paperwork, especially when people expect you to cause a scene. I wasn't going to cause one. I was going to document one. The climax for me was this swapping outrage for outline. Anger phrase, a plan holds. Relief came not as fireworks, but as a tidy row of cells. Patterns are a principal's best friend. Bell schedules, bus routes, cafeteria lines, order that looks like chaos until you track it. Sidonie Vale worked at Morrison Marketing, a glass-bright building where ideas wore sneakers. Their lobby posted lunch hours and shuttle times. The receptionist smiled with the practiced ease of a brand video. The elevators hummed like well-funded promises. Noon came and the streets softened with people looking for salads and sunlight. I watched from the cafe across the way, the one where the barista remembers names out of kindness, not data mining. Sidonie exited at exactly 12:15 3 times in a row. She returned at 1:30 3 times in a row. Older adults know this character isn't what you do once. It's what you do again. Each repetition stitched confidence into my notes. The climax was modest but decisive, a dotted line turned solid. Habits had drawn me a map, and the map invited me to keep going. I wrote, "Let the data speak" at the top of the page, because emotions shout and records endure. Time, place, weather, who walked first, who looked back. The small things juries notice and lovers ignore. I synced the camera clock to my phone, and my phone to the wall clock in my kitchen. A triangle of time that would stop anyone from calling me careless. Older viewers will remember balancing checkbooks. This felt similar. Columns reconciling, making sure the numbers respect the truth. Tamsin Pike texted breathe. I did. Another line, 2:44 p.m., light wind sunglasses, phone in left hand. It's the kind of note you think you won't need until someone says, "Are you sure?" The climax arrived as calm clarity. I wasn't building a trap. I was building context. And context is what keeps a hard truth from looking like a grudge. I closed the notebook and felt steadier than any speech could make me. It happened on a Tuesday, the weekday that pretends to be harmless. Sidonie Vale stepped into Brewster's Cafe and didn't order. She scanned. A tall man entered on a delay like a second thought wearing cologne. They didn't touch, not then. But there's a choreography to secrecy, the way shoulders angle, the way laughter shortens, the way a glance checks the door instead of the face across the table. I filmed from the sidewalk through the big front window, the way tourists film pastries. Older adults know that skill acting casual while your heart hammers. I told myself to notice, not narrate. Red scarf, black SUV fob, a napkin folded twice, then no more. The climax was not a kiss, it was recognition. People who believe they're unseen grow sloppy, and sloppiness leaves breadcrumbs even the kindest mother can follow. I saved the clip, labeled it with date and minute, and felt the hinge on the week begin to turn. Guesswork is a liar, so I walked the block. The man from the cafe turned up again, 2 streets over, at Iron Harbor Fitness, where the windows advertised transformation in 30 days. The sign out front named him Kearmatics owner and head trainer. He shook hands with a client, then another the way men do when they want the room to remember their wrists. I noted the logo, the hours, the side door with a keypad. I went back the next day and saw him again, right on time, confident as a billboard. Older adults understand repetition. It's how you memorize hymns and passwords. Kearmatics wasn't a rumor. He was a routine. The climax landed in my notebook. Same jacket as the cafe, same watch, same half smile meant to look accidental. I didn't feel clever. I felt tired and certain. I typed his name beside Sidonie Vale, and told the file to remember what my memory might try to forgive. Research is colder than gossip. I opened Instagram because it tells on people who think captions are curtains. Keir Maddox had a family account linked in his bio, and there she was, Marielle Coates, wife mother of 2. A woman who posts birthday cakes at kitchen tables that look like mine used to. Her smile was practical, the kind that remembers school pickups and permission slips. Older viewers will recognize that smile. It's the one you wear when the house needs milk and nobody knows but you. I felt a weight settle. Evidence is heavy when it belongs to someone else's heartbreak. I wrote Marielle Coates' spouse in the margin and underlined it twice, not because I needed the reminder, but because I wanted to respect the cost. The climax wasn't anger, it was sorrow sharpened into purpose. If this story was going to crack open, the least I could do was keep the edges clean. Thursday tested my patience and rewarded it. A black SUV idled behind Morrison Marketing, the kind of alley where deliveries pretend not to eavesdrop. Sidonie Vale approached first, then Keir Maddox. 5 minutes later, a stagger designed to fool strangers. They drove the same route I'd mapped the day before, down Maple Street, to a modest complex with numbers so faded you had to squint. Unit 214. That detail matters when people swear it couldn't be them. I parked across from the mailbox cluster and kept the camera steady on my lap, the way retirees hold crossword puzzles at the doctor's office. Older adults know how to wait without wasting time. In and out. 52 minutes on Tuesday, an hour and 6 on Thursday. The climax here wasn't what happened inside. It was the clock. Clocks don't gossip. They testify. Each minute was a bead on a string I could hold up to the light later. The next time, sunlight handed me a clear shot. They thought the shade of the stairwell made them private. It only made the footage steadier. I filmed 47 minutes that would make anyone's stomach drop. Not because of scandal, but because of certainty. The way a head rests on a shoulder that isn't supposed to be familiar. The way a hand pauses at a door as if waiting for permission from a ghost. I kept my breathing quiet and my framing wide, the way you do when you're old enough to know you'll have to watch this again. Older viewers understand confrontation is temporary, documentation endures. The climax arrived without music, just 2 people exiting into daylight, too relaxed. I reviewed the clip in my car and felt the heat through the windshield like a warning. This wasn't a maybe, it was a record. I saved it 3 times and drove home slower than the speed limit. At my kitchen table, I opened a fresh project and named it a gift, not a threat, not revenge. A gift that looked like a documentary, dates at the bottom corner, wide shots to avoid theatrics, split screens, that let viewers compare vows to behavior without my commentary telling them what to think. I wrote a simple rule on a sticky note, let them tell on themselves. I drafted a release schedule that would outlast denials, and a file structure that would outlast hardware. Older adults have learned to back up what matters. Photos, wills, passwords, and now truth. The climax was a choice that surprised even me. I would not scream under their arch. I would keep my seat, let the music play, and allow the story to unfold in the only language today's world refuses to ignore. Receipts. I closed the laptop, turned off the kitchen light, and felt the house agree. This time we're not swallowing it. I opened a clean spreadsheet and drew 2 rails across the week. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Between them, I laid the same 3 stations every time: Brewster's Cafe, Iron Harbor Fitness, and Maple Street, Unit 214. Sidonie Vale left Morrison Marketing at 12:15 p.m., like a bell I didn't ring. Keir Maddox appeared on a 5-minute delay, as if secrecy could be scheduled. I logged minutes the way retirees log blood pressure, calmly, consistently, with the quiet hope that numbers will tell mercy from mistake. Each pass added a bead to the string order coffee glance at Doorwalk South. Older adults know this rhythm. It's the rhythm of caregiving, of bills, of making life work. My spreadsheet wasn't angry, it was patient. And patience is hard to argue with. The climax came softly 3 identical afternoons in a row. Patterns don't shout, they nod. I hit save, printed a copy for a folder, and felt the case start walking on its own. I needed lunch hours confirmed without drama, so Tamsin Pike put on her brightest cardigan and her surprise gift smile. At Morrison Marketing, Greer Talbot guarded the desk with the cheerful precision of someone who color codes vacations. "We're sending blooms to a rising star," Tamsin said and asked, when that rising star usually stepped out so the bouquet could be a moment. Greer, flattered by the idea of timing, offered the helpful truth. "She's out 12:15 to 1:30 most days. No hacking, no lies about emergencies. Just a sister pretending to care about peonies more than patterns." Older viewers have made these calls the PTA, the pharmacy, the front office getting answers smoothly. The climax clicked when Tamsin texted me the exact minutes crowned with a winking emoji. Independent confirmation matters. It turns suspicion into structure. I wrote, "Greer Talbot receptionist corroborates lunch window," and felt the plan shed its training wheels. Kindness had opened the door. Record-keeping would hold it. I walked the blocks the way I used to walk a school, after hours checking corners, counting exits, learning where mischief hides. From cafe to gym to Maple Street, I marked awnings that cast helpful shade. Reflective windows that doubled as monitors, and alleys where a camera would be intrusive, not truthful. Older adults remember folding road maps at the kitchen table. This felt the same, a two-dimensional plan for a three-dimensional problem. I timed traffic lights, learned which bus stop created cover, and noted where the sun would sit at 2:45 p.m. The goal was simple, clean footage that didn't require apologies. No peeking through curtains, no craning over fences. Public places tell public stories. The climax arrived when I found a bench across from the gym that framed the side door like a stage. I could sit with a coffee and look like any other neighbor, killing 10 minutes. 10 minutes was all the truth required. On the way home, I argued with myself the way only older parents can. Was this about protecting Rowan March or proving I hadn't been the problem all along? I pictured him at 12 knees chipped from a bike fall, refusing help until I brought the bandages anyway. Love looks like that quiet, competent, unwilling to let infections spread. Pride looks louder. I don't want loud. I made coffee decaf on purpose and wrote a sentence at the top of the page. Do this so he isn't trapped in a lie. If I couldn't sign that statement tomorrow, I would stop. Clear rules beat hot tempers. The climax was a feeling more than a line. Something in my chest settled. I wasn't hunting scandal. I was guarding a future. Older viewers know the difference. Guarding is slower, steadier, and less fun to brag about. I closed the notebook and realized I didn't need to win just to be accurate. Back on Tuesday, the sidewalk gave me everything. Through Brewster's big window, Sidonie Vale and Keir Maddox behaved like light-erased consequences. They didn't touch often, but when they did, it was the sort of touch that forgets the room has other eyes. I kept the frame wide and let them be small, like figures in a snow globe you can't shake. Older adults understand distance. We use it to hear better. From across the street, laughs flatten and truth rises. Who checks the door? Who checks the time? Who forgets to? They parted with the restraint of people who plan to meet again soon. The climax was a glance hers over his shoulder. Not romantic, tactical. I captured it, labeled the clip, and chose not to feel triumphant. Watching people hang themselves with their own rope doesn't feel like victory. It feels like work. Still work stacks up. My folder did what grief can't it. Organized itself into clarity. I built a little library, the way grandparents build garages, everything in a bin with a name. Everything able to be found by someone who isn't me. Cafe/1203, Gym 1203, Maple 1203. Under each, a text file with time in, time out, detail notes. Captions for the future red scarf, black SUV gray duffel. Older viewers appreciate this cadence. It's how you keep medical records straight and taxes unscary. The point wasn't to overwhelm. It was to remove wiggle room. Memory can be generous. A timestamp can't. The climax came when I stacked clips from 2 different days side by side and saw the same sequence unfold as if choreographed. Habit is honesty's X-ray. You don't want to see it, but there it is. I backed up the folder to a drive that lives in a ceramic flower canister right next to sugar. Secrets don't need dark places. They need accurate names, quiet shelves, and doors that close. If truth was going to travel, it needed a vehicle that didn't look like me. I opened a new profile and gave it a spine, Lark Winslow wedding photographer, believer in clean light and cleaner vows. Lark wasn't a lie, she was a lens. Her feed showed bouquets and beachfronts and small honesty tips in cursive transparency, looks good in every season. Older adults have met Lark before. She's the friend of a friend who posts kind corrections and helpful checklists. I followed vendors' venues and a handful of ethics nerds who love receipts. Within days, Lark looked real enough to be invited anywhere. The climax was subtle, a DM from a planner saying, "Love your stance." Stance. That's what I wanted, principles in the open, not secrets in the dark. Lark would carry the files when the time was right, and if anyone tried to swat the message, they'd hit a bouquet. Optics matter. Sometimes the bow on truth keeps hands from bleeding. I drafted posts the way you pack a suitcase for a trip you can't extend, versatile, necessary, no fluff. A soft teaser first. Coming Sunday, a study in vows and behavior, then a carousel of questions without names. Is love a promise or a performance? Lark Winslow shared a clip of ocean sound and a veil moving like a tide. Older viewers know bait when they see it. They also know when the hook is fairness, not fury. I wasn't promising scandal, I was promising clarity. I chose hashtags that call good people to hard conversations. Wedding ethics, truth in love. Accountability. The climax of this stage was watching the save count tick upward. People didn't rage in the comments, they bookmarked. Bookmarks mean they plan to think, not just shout. I scheduled everything for Sunday morning when coffee is hot and defenses are lower. If anyone accused Lark of clickbait, the answer would be waiting context. Editing is like quilting. Older hands know how pieces become pattern. I laid the cafe beside the gym beside Maple Street without narration. You can hear more with your eyes when no one is explaining things at you. Breaths, not speeches. A laugh that spikes and dies. Shoes that hurry after saying they won't. Sidonie Vale and Keir Maddox told the story better than I could by doing nothing differently than they already did. I balanced ambient sound so the footage felt like standing nearby, not peering through keyholes. The climax surprised me. I didn't need a reveal. The reveal was structure, 3 days, same steps, same door. When I watched it end to end, I felt the way you feel. After finishing a puzzle, you were sure had a missing piece. Every piece was there, and none of them were mine. I saved the project as rough one and took a breath that felt like an answer. I typed captions slowly, like addressing envelopes for a reunion. You get one chance to spell the past right. Words appeared only when mouths moved, nothing extra. 2 more hours, not. 2 more hours. Older adults hate being shouted at by punctuation. So do I. I checked readability for small screens and added speaker tags when voices overlapped. Then I made 3 backups, an external drive for the safe, a cloud copy under a boring name, and a USB that lives in my purse beside the mints. Tamsin Pike teased me for overdoing it, until I reminded her of the time she lost a passport in a magazine. The climax was a power flicker, lights dipped then returned. I looked at the drives and didn't panic. Backups aren't romance, but they are love. If Rowan March needed this truth someday, I wanted it to be available, not almost. Almost doesn't hold up in daylight or courtrooms. I'm not a lawyer, but I've taught enough civics to color inside the lines. Public sidewalks are fair. Lobbies with posted rules are fair if you're a polite guest. Apartments are off limits. The stairwell footage came from outside where anyone could stand. I blurred faces of strangers who wandered through frames and left minors completely out. Keir Maddox and Sidonie Vale were adults choosing public spaces. I saved links to state guidelines and wrote a short note to myself. If it feels sneaky, step back. Older viewers know this compass. We use it when neighbors overshare, when family asks for what isn't ours to give. The climax was relief, a clean conscience paired with clean footage. I wasn't weaponizing privacy. I was respecting it while documenting what privacy can't cover. If anyone asked, I could say the words without sweating. Truth that needs a whisper usually isn't truth. Mine could stand at a microphone. I brushed my teeth and met my reflection like an old colleague. If he hates you for this, I told the mirror, let it be because you chose truth over comfort, not because you enjoyed the spectacle. Rowan March deserves a mother, not a ringmaster. I pictured Greer Talbot's helpful smile, Tamsin Pike's tied shoes, Mariel Coates's kitchen table cakes, and remembered that every clip had a cost. Older adults carry these costs quietly, selling a car to pay tuition, taking a second shift, biting a tongue at Thanksgiving. I set the USB beside my wallet and turned off the bathroom light. The climax landed in my voice steady, not hard. Truth first, I said, resentment later. Resentment can wait in the garage with the paint cans and Christmas lights. Truth can't. When I lay down, I didn't sleep fast, but I didn't toss either. The plan was ready. Morning would come, and with it, the next right step. Rowan March showed up with what he called a peace offering. A bottle of red he knows I save for holidays. He didn't hug me. He stared at his shoes and asked if we could talk in the kitchen, like we always do when the world tilts. I poured 2 fingers each, though he barely sipped. He tried jokes first, the kind grown children use when they're afraid of their own choices. Then the apology for the way the phone call landed. Then the request, please don't make this harder. Older parents know that order. It's the choreography of damage control. I let the silence sit long enough to feel honest. He finally asked what I was thinking. I said, I'm listening. It disarmed him more than any argument would. He talked, stumbled, circled, and talked again while the bottle sweated on the counter between us. Like a witness with nothing left to add, outside the porch light didn't blink. He said, it's just one day, Mom. Please don't turn it into a war. One day. I remembered the days, nobody counts fever nights. On a pull-out couch, double shifts, when the rent snapped its teeth. Lunch breaks spent hunting clearance cleats because a middle schooler had a tryout and hope. Rowan March wasn't cruel. He was coached by comfort and Sidonie Vale's expectations. He placed his hand on the bottle the way people do when they want to end a topic politely. I moved it aside and asked him what he wanted. Not what she wanted, not what the invitations required. Older adults know this pivot. It's how you save a conversation from drowning. He didn't answer. The climax arrived as a whisper. Just don't make me choose. I nodded like a metronome and said I wouldn't. Inside, something older than patience lifted its head and watched the clock. The refrigerator hummed. The house kept its opinions to itself. I reached across the counter and took his fingers, like I used to at crosswalks, firm but gentle. I want you happy, I said, careful to keep my voice from sounding like a verdict. That sentence is a parent's Swiss Army knife, true, useful, and small enough to carry into any argument. Rowan March looked relieved, which hurt more than anger would have. He thanked me for understanding and for not taking things personally. The older you are, the more you learn how often personally is code for accurately. I didn't correct him. I let him believe the world was simple for one more hour. The climax came when he squeezed back and said, you've always been reasonable. Reasonable is what people call you when they can't afford your honesty. He left the bottle and the promise to call tomorrow. I saw him to the door and pretended not to notice his shoulders drop. Outside, tires whispered along the wet street. When the latch clicked, I returned to the desk that used to host science fair posters and scholarship essays. The timeline glowed a cool blue, heartbeat steady across the screen. I placed the cafe, the Jim Maple Street, in order and watched the pattern rise like a tide chart. This is what older adults know at some point. Emotion steps aside, so diligence can drive. I trimmed dead air, stabilized shaky edges, and synced clocks until the numbers agreed with themselves. Sidonie Vale waved through glass. Keir Maddox glanced at his watch, 2 dots orbiting the same hour. The climax came not from faces, but from repetition, the quiet kind that turns doubt into duty. I exported a work copy and labeled it the way a librarian blesses a spine. The house creaked the way old houses do, and I let it talk. Mine has seen punishments and braces and late-night pep talks. It can stomach truth. Tonight, it asked for evidence. I opened a fresh narration track and recorded what the pictures couldn't, the ridge in my voice, where disappointment meets resolve. Not a rant, not a verdict, just the handrail viewers can hold while the steps get steep. Older adults appreciate being guided without being shoved. I described places and times, not people's souls. Sidonie Vale became the woman at the window. Keir Maddox became the man with the gym bag. Rowan March became the groom who trusts. Labels that invite thinking instead of fist-raising. The climax of the pass was catching myself insert a sigh after a cut and deleting it. I'm not the point. The pattern is. I read the script again at a slower pace, the way you read to a child who's afraid of the end. Calm voice, clean spine, no adjectives doing push-ups. When I stopped, the room felt larger. Restraint makes space. Space lets truth speak without me shouting. Quiet wins more than volume. Often, I trimmed my on-camera presence to almost nothing. No reaction shots, no raised eyebrows telegraphing judgment. I wanted viewers to discover what I discovered, not admire how I discovered it. Sidonie Vale would incriminate Sidonie Vale. I would simply keep time. Keir Maddox didn't need narration to look familiar. The routine narrated him. Older adults get this instinct when a grandchild learns a lesson. You stand nearby and let gravity teach. The climax of the edit arrived when I deleted a clever line I'd liked for 2 days. Clever isn't credible when the subject is harm. I replaced it with silence and a shot of a clock's second hand. That second felt like a held breath across a room full of parents who've waited for a truth they didn't want. I saved the file and felt lighter. Modesty in storytelling isn't shyness, it's strategy. If the tape is strong, the quiet will carry it. Let evidence be the loudest line today. I copied the final render to a small silver USB and slid it into a zipped pocket in my purse. If the internet failed to drive, and a walk would not. Older adults plan for outages. We keep paper maps and spare keys because we remember when doors didn't apologize. I labeled the drive in tiny letters only I would read and placed a duplicate in the flour canister beside sugar. Rowan March once hid Halloween candy there. It seemed fitting. The climax was practical, not cinematic, knowing that the story could reach the right eyes without asking permission from any platform. Insurance doesn't make fireworks, it prevents funerals. I texted Tamsin Pike a picture of the backup, and she replied with a thumbs up and a heart that looked steadier than mine felt. Preparation is a kind of prayer. You do what you can, you let it sit, and you trust the rest to timing. Fate favors the organized elder. I scheduled the upload for Sunday at 7:00 a.m., the hour of coffee, church clothes, and softened defenses. Sidonie Vale and Rowan March would be boarding by 9. I chose the window between excitement and takeoff when phones are checked twice and truth travels faster than luggage. Lark Winslow had been warming the audience all week with questions about vows and behavior. The saves outnumbered the comments, which matters more. Older adults know Sunday rhythms. We know when people listen. I added one line to the caption, no names, just receipts. The climax was pressing the scheduling button and feeling the quiet afterward. No drumroll, no lightning, just a task completed like setting a timer before roasting a chicken. The outcome would come later. For now, the post existed in the future, waiting to meet the present. I closed the laptop, rinsed 2 glasses, and let the kitchen return to being a kitchen. Some rooms breathe better without witnesses at night. By Saturday, Lark Winslow had a row of polite curiosity lined up like church hats. Venue coordinators, officiants, and photographers bookmarked the teaser, and messaged about important conversations. The feed looked harmless sunset aisles, veils tight crops of hands. Underneath, a current gathered. Older adults recognize that hush the moment before a meeting. Turns difficult the breath before a family vote. I answered only with gratitude and a reminder about Sunday morning. The climax was a single DM from a planner who wrote, "Thanks for doing this carefully. Carefully matters. Careful keeps the focus on what's done, not who's doing it." I scrolled once more through Lark Winslow's grid, checked the scheduled post, and powered the phone down to 40% to make myself stop fidgeting. If discipline had a ringtone, it would be silence. Outside, the neighborhood folded lawn chairs and waved goodnights. Inside, I made tea and told the kettle not to whistle. Let morning carry the weight gently. Doubt arrived anyway, the way it does at 2 in the morning when the house sounds like an old ship. What if I was wrong about what I saw? What if context existed beyond my frame? I opened the project and watched it from the beginning, this time pretending to be a stranger who doesn't know Rowan March or Sidonie Vale or Keir Maddox. I tried to dislike myself while I watched. The footage didn't care. Clocks don't blush, doors don't lie. Older adults have learned this discipline, checking the story against the receipts before offering advice. I cross-referenced timestamps with bus schedules and weather logs because I wanted boredom, not fireworks, to confirm me. The climax was a deep, unshowy exhale. The record held. I closed the laptop and apologized to the dark for waking it. Then I apologized to myself for doubting the part of me that still knows how to see. Sleep returned like a patient dog. In the morning, I added the split screen, the gentlest indictment I know. On the left, vows under an arch, hands joined, promises polished like silver. On the right, a Tuesday noon, Sidonie Vale, laughing too fast. Keir Maddox checking the hall, the door swinging shut behind them. I lined the beats so they answered each other without me saying it. Forsaking all others meant 2 more hours. Honor met a key fob. Older adults appreciate comparisons that respect their intelligence. They can connect dots without blinking them in neon. The climax of the cut was quiet horror, not because of scandal, but because of symmetry. When 2 scenes rhyme, truth stops needing adjectives. I watched the sequence twice and a third time for sound, bringing levels down until the music behaved like a guest. I saved the project as split proof and felt the file settle into place like a level picture frame. Frames matter, crooked truths tilt everything around them in silence. An hour later, my phone buzzed with a text from Rowan March. "You're the best, Mom." A picture followed him in a suit he'd picked without me, grinning like the future was simple. I typed 3 different replies and deleted all of them. Older adults learn to protect tenderness from haste. I put the phone face down and let the message glow through the case like a nightlight. The climax was the choice not to answer. Not yet. Words have weight. I needed the right ones later. For now, silence meant I could keep both hands on the wheel. Sidonie Vale would have her day at the beach. Keir Maddox would keep checking the time. Lark Winslow would keep breathing like a tide in and out, gathering watchers who prefer proof to gossip. I washed the wine glasses, dried them without clatter, and told my heart to wait its turn. Patience is armor. Restraint keeps love from breaking. Early on hard days, sunlight hit the lobby like a movie premiere, all palms and polished tile. I walked in with purpose and a camera bag that said I belonged. The concierge, Ephraim Soto, smiled the way people do when they're paid to notice details. I asked for directions like a vendor on a tight schedule, and he handed me a discreet map with arrows to the suites. Older adults will know this act, the pleasant face you wear when your heart is busy elsewhere. Elevators chimed. In the mirrored wall, I looked like any mother with good posture and better intentions. I thanked Ephraim and kept moving, counting doors, rehearsing my line. If anyone stopped me, lighting check. Nobody did. The climax came in a small victory, knowing I could stand in the open without lying and still get within earshot of the story. The lobby doors breathed as guests flowed through. I stepped into the quieter hall where carpets excuse secrets and heels soften into whispers. Outside the bridal suite, laughter fizzed all hairspray and nerves. A voice I knew, Sidonie Vale, floated through the crack where the latch didn't quite seal. She was performing ease for her bridesmaids. Then slipped and spoke true, a dig about the mother, a joke about moving to California after the honeymoon, the certainty that Rowan March would follow, because he always does. The words weren't cruel, so much as careless, like placing a glass too close to the edge. Older parents understand that tone. It's the sound of someone counting on your restraint. I pressed the camera to my side and listened only long enough to confirm what I already suspected. I was a problem to be exported, not a person to be included. The climax was a decision not to knock, not to burst in with a speech, not to beg an invitation in a room that had pre-decided me. I turned away, saving breath for the work. I stood in the hall, palms damp against the camera grip, and let the urge to confront pass through me, like weather. Knocking would make a scene. Recording would make a case. I thought of the times I'd forced calm in a principal's office, 2 teenagers swearing they were just joking, a parent insisting the rules were mean. You learn to hold the doorframe and breathe until the story tells on itself. Sidonie Vale kept laughing inside a bright sound with a sharp aftertaste. I stepped back to the elevator, pressed down, and watched my reflection stabilize as the doors closed. The climax was restraint itself. Older viewers know this muscle. It's the one you use when you don't clap back at Thanksgiving, when you put the car in park before you cry. The lobby swallowed me again, full of roses and expectation. I reset my focus. If truth wanted a stage, the ceremony would offer one in daylight. At 4:00 p.m., the sand became a sanctuary. Silas Emery, the officiant, lifted his book like a lantern, and everyone faced the water. Rowan March stood handsome and undone, the way suns look when the future tilts toward them. I kept my lens wide. Whatever came later, this moment was still his. Older adults understand this dual loyalty, holding love and clarity in the same hand without crushing either. The breeze tugged at fabric. The music did its polite, forgettable job. I let the camera breathe, gathering the details people use to argue that everything was perfect, the way his eyes wet, the steady way he held them back, the small smile when he saw the aisle begin. The climax for now was simple proof of beauty. If anyone accused me of chasing pain, this footage would answer. I captured it like a prayer said for a child who won't look back, and then I readied myself for the turn. I framed the vows carefully, no cynical cuts, no manipulative zooms. Silas Emery asked the right questions. The couple gave the right answers. The ocean edited itself, waves covering small stumbles, like a friend coughing at the perfect time. I included the smiles, the laughter at a dropped ring, the soft applause when they made it official. Older viewers will appreciate this choice. Honest storytelling respects the parts that shine, not just the parts that sting. If truth is going to lean hard later, it needs a straight spine. Now, I logged time codes quietly, a metronome beneath the music. This is when forever was promised. The climax was a private one, my conviction that beauty and betrayal can sit in the same timeline without canceling each other. People will try to make you pick. I won't. I let the ceremony end in full color, then pivoted to the part nobody wrote into the program, the half-lit hours after the cake. By night, the shore turned to velvet and corner shadows. I traded the wide lens for reach and slipped behind a dune where the reception music softened into pulse. Keir Maddox appeared first, the kind of confidence that expects cover. Sidonie Vale followed on a 5-minute delay, the way habits honor superstition. They didn't see me. They didn't look for anyone but each other. The camera did not tremble when they kissed. Older adults understand stillness under pressure, how you hold your breath to thread a needle or calm a dog's collar tag at the vet. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 3. They separated like people who believe time is their accomplice. The climax had no soundtrack, just the quiet fact of it recorded in air, clear enough to hurt. I kept the footage wide, respectful, undeniable. Then I lowered the camera, letting the waves finish the sentence neither of them would say out loud where guests could hear. Wind carried fragments like receipts. 2 more hours from Sidonie Vale and rooms ready from Keir Maddox. It wasn't loud. I didn't need loud. Older listeners know how to hear around corners decades of lullabies and late-night check-ins train your ear. They walked back separately, a choreography as old as secrecy. Inside the band shifted to slow songs. Outside the sand held their footprints until the next wave pretended to forget. I checked the file, watched the counter tick, and felt the kind of calm that isn't peace, just purpose. The climax was grammar future tense spoken like a plan, not a mistake. 2 more hours doesn't apologize. It schedules. I tucked the camera away and let my hands shake after not during. Somewhere Rowan March was laughing at something harmless. Somewhere else a timeline aligned like train tracks. I chose the parking lot over the dance floor. The car would be dark, the upload fast, and the clock honest. Under a sodium streetlight, the resort lot felt like a pause button. I slid into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and opened the laptop. Files moved like beads on a string from camera to Drive Cafe Gym Maple Vows Beach. Older adults know this relief when a task you've dreaded finally becomes a list you can check. I sipped warm water from a bottle, found Signal, and started the first upload to a private folder. Lark Winslow was cued to carry it on Sunday. Tonight was about safekeeping. A couple in formal wear passed my bumper and didn't notice me. The dashboard clock clicked over a minute. The climax arrived in green progress bars, marching steadily to done. I ejected the card the way nurses remove a needle, steady, unfussy, grateful for clean technique. Then I sat back, palms flat on my thighs, and told my heartbeat to slow down. The car smelled like salt and upholstery. I felt both. Home by 2, the house asleep and forgiving. I set the laptop on the kitchen table and opened the scheduler. Lark Winslow's caption waited like a polite envelope. No names, just receipts. I set the post for 700 a.m., Sunday, coffee hour, thinking hour, the hour when people judge themselves kindly enough to judge others fairly. Older viewers know how mornings change the tone, how a night storm seems less ferocious by daylight. I pressed schedule and backed everything up again, cloud drive purse. A nightlight glowed in the hallway, the same one I plugged in years ago for a child afraid of monsters. The climax was quiet relief, not triumph. The work was done correctly, now it had to be done bravely. I rinsed my face, folded a dish towel, and left the kitchen as I found it tidy, ordinary, capable of feeding people. I told the clock good night and meant it. Morning would have its say soon enough. By 9:00 a.m., the video had a life that didn't need me. Views climbed past commas, shares zipped like gossip with a conscience. The phone vibrated across the counter, unknown numbers, a ding from Tamsin Pike. 2 messages from Rowan. March stacked like pleading. I poured batter anyway. Older adults understand this stubborn ritual. When the world spins, you flip pancakes. Butter hissed, maple warmed, and in between turns, I glanced at comments that sounded like juries and prayers. No names in the clip, only sequences and clocks. But everyone knew how stories like this work. The climax wasn't a number, it was a sentence from a stranger. Whoever filmed this cared about being fair. Fair, that word steadied my fork. I plated a stack I couldn't eat and let the phone ring until it gave up. Outside, a neighbor dragged a trash bin to the curb. Inside, the house smelled like Sunday and decisions. I set an extra plate anyway. By mid-morning, the local station cut into recipes and home tips. Nadia Penn appeared with footage over her shoulder and the words "mystery wedding photographer" marching underneath. She spoke like a careful aunt, firm, curious, not cruel. The anchor beside her asked about privacy, about ethics, about the price of public truth. I watched from the kitchen with a dish towel in my hands, the way retired people watch weather alerts, alert but not surprised. Lark Winslow was the name they said, the account they couldn't find in any tagged photos. The climax was a question from Nadia. I could hear even through the TV. Whoever filmed this, why? She paused like she hoped the person would answer from the living room. I clicked the set off and heard only my own house breathing. Why is a simple verb that costs a lot. I put on my shoes, grabbed the purse with the USB, and chose a grocery store with bright lights. At the market produce, mist hissed, as if the lettuce needed secrets too. Nadia Penn stood near the apples with a small crew and that patient smile reporters learn to keep. She approached polite and asked if I had thoughts about the video making rounds. The aisle felt like a chapel, quiet listeners on either side, fluorescent benediction above. I said the line I'd practiced, in case my spine needed it. Sometimes truth needs a hand to reach the surface. She blinked, then asked if I was admitting anything. Older adults have danced this step, answering what matters, without feeding the beast. I told her I believed in receipts more than rumors in daylight, more than whispers. The climax was a choice. I held her gaze and let the silence name me without using my name. She thanked me. The camera light went off. I paid for oranges I didn't need and walked out into weather that felt like an answer. By late afternoon, my phone flashed a text from an unknown number. "We know it's you. Take it down." Threats always dress themselves as certainty. I filled the kettle and waited for the soft rattle before the boil. The way older hands wait for a stubborn jar to give. I poured tea, added honey, and set the cup beside the USB like a truce. Offering to my own nerves. Another ping, last warning. I remembered PTA meetings where someone's temper arrived early and facts arrived late. Facts won then, they'd win now. I scrolled to a photo Tamsin Pike sent sunlight across her porch. Proof the world still knows how to be ordinary. The climax was a choice to do nothing. No reply, no counter-threat, no late-night bargaining with bullies. I set the phone face down and stirred my tea until the spoon went quiet. Silence isn't surrender, it's a boundary. Let the message burn itself out against a wall that doesn't move. Evening brought a gentler knock, hesitant, respectful. On the porch stood Marielle Coates, mascara mapped beneath her eyes, a tote bag clutched like a life jacket. She spoke before I could. "He's in that video, isn't he, Keir Maddox?" I stepped aside, and she walked to the kitchen, as if kitchens are where women solve impossible arithmetic. She didn't ask how I caught it. She asked how to breathe through it. I handed her a glass of water and a clean dish towel, the old remedies for shock. Older adults know this choreography, sit, sip, name what hurts. She said the children were at her sister's that she'd suspected since spring, that seeing it in sequence felt like waking under cold light. The climax arrived when she whispered, "Thank you for showing me what I needed to see." Not triumph. Permission to stop guessing, to start deciding. We held hands across the table, the way lifelines sometimes do. By morning, Rowan March came with the posture of a man who slept badly and shaved anyway. He sat exactly where he sat for science projects and breakups, and he asked without ceremony, "Did you make the video?" I told him the precise truth, that the account was Lark Winslow, that the footage was compiled and scheduled, that names were never used, that the tapes speak for themselves. Technical honesty, plain as a ledger. He looked at the floor, not because he didn't understand, but because understanding hurt. Older parents know this threshold when the words that save someone also cut them. I didn't touch him yet. He needed the question to echo off the cabinets and come back changed. The climax was his inhale, the kind you hear through a closed door, followed by, "I don't know how to look at her now. I said we would figure out tomorrow on a full stomach," and I put toast in the toaster. He admitted what many grown children say when love is expensive. I want to forgive, but every time I blink, I see it. I told Rowan March that forgiveness is honest only when it respects reality. Pretty lies are heavy. They look light because someone else carries the cost. He nodded, then shook his head the way men do when their bodies disagree with their minds. We spread the printouts on the table timestamps like mile markers. He kept touching the corner of one page as if the paper might apologize. Older adults know this ritual clean the counter line. Up the bills make a plan to keep the lights on. The climax came in a sentence as small as it was brave. I need help. We said the word therapy out loud and it didn't sting. It sounded like a tool, not a sentence. I wrote down 2 names, tore the paper in half, and gave him one to keep. Before he left, I told Rowan March about the hallway outside the bridal suite, how Sidonie Vale joked about moving to California. After the honeymoon, how certainty rolled off her like perfume. I watched the sentence land and shatter. He didn't rage. He folded the way a tent folds when the pole is gone. I made coffee we didn't drink and let him sit in the dent his shoulders carved. Older parents know not to fill the silence with reassurances that won't hold. He finally asked, "Was I that easy to steer?" I said love isn't steering, it's trust, and trust can be borrowed by people who shouldn't spend it. The climax was his decision to stand. He stared at the doorway, then at the picture of him at 8, with cake on his chin, and said, "I need to cancel the story we told. Not just a wedding, a script." We gathered the pages quietly, because endings deserve dignity too. The next 48 hours were administrative and holy. Rowan March met with an attorney about an annulment and booked therapy, then texted a photo of a stamped form like a travel visa out of denial. I washed the guest sheets' fluffed pillows and moved a box of winter scarves so the closet could open its arms. Older adults understand this sacrament. Make the bed turn on the lamp, stock the bathroom with the good towels. He arrived with a duffel and the posture of a man who isn't performing strength today. We ate soup, Tams and pike, dropped off, and didn't talk about forever. We talked about Thursday. The climax came when he slept through the night for the first time in weeks. The house holding him, the way a good sentence holds meaning. Morning brought the clean sound of a shower and a door opening without caution. Healing doesn't throw a parade. It shows up punctual and asks for breakfast. Outside our walls, the internet built its scaffolding. Think pieces stitched videos, strangers with microphones. Justice Grandma trended beside recipes and sports. Some called it cruel, some called it necessary. Both were right in their own weather. I ignored most of it. Nadia Penn's segment stayed measured, which I appreciated the way elders appreciate a well-plowed street. After snow, passable, not flashy. I kept comments off Lark Winslow and left the post to stand on its legs. Older adults know when attention is a fire you don't feed. The climax, small and satisfying, was a private message from a minister. Thank you for respecting the vows enough to show when they were broken. Not a cheer, a witness. I made dinner, stirred sauce, and let the pot decide when to simmer. The world would keep talking until it found something louder. Inside the house practiced being ordinary again. Ordinary is where people heal without applause. On Wednesday, Sidonie Vale arrived wearing sunglasses big enough to hide behind. She spoke before sitting. "You ruined my life." I didn't argue. I set a glass of water within reach and waited for her hands to stop shaking. Anger burned off fast. Fear stayed. I wanted. Both she admitted security with Rowan March adrenaline, with Keir Maddox. Older adults have heard confessions like this from teenagers who swear they can ace finals without studying and also never miss a party. 2 lives always bill double. The climax came when she asked if the video could be removed. I told her the truth. She already knew echoes don't go back into throats. She cried for what she wanted, then for what she did, and the 2 sounds were different. I said, "Someone always gets hurt. Your job now is choosing who you'll stop hurting." She nodded, a child with a scraped pride, and promised to call a therapist that day. Before she left, Sidonie Vale asked a harder question. Am I a bad person? I told her the line I give students and neighbors alike. People aren't algebra, they're choices. She'd made a chain of them. She could make a different chain. I suggested she tell Marielle Coates the truth directly, not through a lawyer. I suggested she send Rowan March a statement of facts, not an aria. Older adults know that apologies wear work boots or their costumes. The climax wasn't cinematic, It was her shoulders lowering when responsibility settled in instead of shame. She thanked me not for mercy, but for terms. I walked her to the door and didn't offer a hug. Hugs are for later, after evidence of change. The porch smelled like rain pretending to return. Inside, I wrote 3 sentences on a sticky note. Truth first, repair next, reputation when it earns itself. I stuck it to the fridge where invitations used to live. Time did what time does when you let it. Worked quietly. Rowan March kept therapy appointments, reclaimed friendships, and learned solitude without loneliness. One Sunday, he brought someone for dinner. Emma Hale, a librarian with patient eyes and a laugh that remembers to breathe. She offered to chop onions and didn't flinch when the sauce splattered. Ordinary joy, sturdy as cast iron. Online Lark Winslow posted sunsets and ethics tips like nothing dramatic had ever happened, which felt right. Mariel Coates sent a holiday card of kids on bicycles. The note said they were finding their feet. The climax came from Sidonie Vale, who called from California and thanked me not for exposing her, but for forcing a pause long enough to meet herself. Accountability had not annihilated her. It had introduced her to a mirror. I hung up, set the table, and called everyone to eat. The house breathed like a place that remembers storms and trusts roofs. Looking back, I see what truth accomplishes. It burns away the superficial glamour, and in the ashes, everything eventually blossoms. Mariel Coates walks more lightly. Rowan March stands taller. Sidonie Vale gazes in the mirror without blinking. I realize there are 2 kinds of secrets, the kind you keep to protect good things like my lasagna recipe taped to the cupboard, and the kind you reveal to liberate people even if the whole room is stunned. The voices around me, sisters, mother, daughter, neighbors, sang like a chorus until anyone with ears could hear. If you live long enough, you know that the reward isn't applause. It's a house where you can sleep peacefully, a child where you can feed well, a conscience free from guilt. Now it's your turn. When love is threatened, do you choose silence or frankness? Comment silence or truth, and let me know why. If your story needs a voice, I'll listen. Subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to see more compelling stories coming soon.